Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you to talk about something that we all face at some point in our lives, the difficult decision to say goodbye to someone who continually ignores us. It's not easy to walk away from relationships, whether they are friendships, family connections, or even romantic partnerships, but sometimes we must make that choice for the sake of our own mental and emotional well-being. We all deserve to be valued, respected, and appreciated in every relationship we hold. Relationships are built on trust, communication, and mutual respect. When these foundations begin to crumble, when we feel ignored, dismissed, or unimportant, it can create a deep sense of pain and confusion. And while it's natural to want to hold on, to fight for those connections, there comes a point where we must ask ourselves, why am I investing so much energy into someone who doesn't see me, hear me, or appreciate me? It's easy to rationalize the behavior of others. We make excuses for them. We tell ourselves they're busy or they don't mean to hurt me. But when the ignoring continues, day after day, month after month, we begin to realize something important. It's not about us anymore. It's about their disregard for us. If someone truly values us, they will make the effort to show it. Ignoring someone is not a passive action. It's a statement. It says that we are not a priority, that our presence or feelings are insignificant. And that, my friends, is not something any of us should tolerate. Saying goodbye in these situations is not about being angry, vengeful, or resentful. It's about self-respect. It's about setting boundaries for ourselves and recognizing that we are worthy of love, attention, and respect. It's about choosing not to remain in situations where we feel neglected, where our worth is questioned, and where we are constantly left feeling invisible. It is ultimately a decision to reclaim. Recognizing self-worth is one of the most fundamental aspects of living a fulfilling and balanced life. It is the foundation upon which we build healthy relationships, pursue meaningful goals, and navigate challenges. Self-worth is not just about how we view ourselves in comparison to others, nor is it rooted in external validation or achievements. It is an internal understanding that we are inherently valuable, deserving of respect, love, and happiness simply because we exist. In a world that often pressures individuals to conform to certain standards of success, appearance, and social approval, recognizing and embracing our self-worth is crucial for maintaining our mental, emotional, and physical well-being. Many people struggle with recognizing their own worth. This is especially true when we are faced with criticism, rejection, or failure. We may start to internalize negative feedback from others, or we may measure our value based on our accomplishments, possessions, or how much attention we receive. However, these external factors are not accurate measures of who we truly are. Our worth is not contingent upon meeting specific societal expectations or receiving accolades from others. True self-worth is about acknowledging our inherent dignity, irrespective of external opinions or circumstances. The journey to recognizing self-worth often begins with self-awareness. It involves taking the time to understand who we are, what we value, and what makes us unique. Self-awareness allows us to reflect on our strengths and weaknesses, our passions and fears, and the experiences that have shaped us. This understanding is not meant to be judgmental, but rather compassionate and accepting. When we know ourselves, we can begin to recognize our worth without relying on outside validation. We no longer feel the need to prove our value to others, because we have already accepted that we are worthy, just as we are. Another crucial aspect of recognizing self-worth is learning to set healthy boundaries. Boundaries are essential for maintaining our mental and emotional well-being. When we recognize our worth, we understand that we deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. This understanding allows us to say no to situations, people, or behaviors that undermine our sense of value. Boundaries help us protect ourselves from toxic relationships and harmful circumstances that can diminish our self-esteem. When we honor our boundaries, we reinforce our self-worth by acknowledging that we are deserving of the space and respect we need to thrive. Self-worth is also closely tied to self-compassion. Many of us are quick to criticize ourselves, to judge ourselves harshly for our perceived failures or imperfections. This negative self-talk can erode our sense of worth over time, leaving us feeling inadequate or unworthy of love and success. Recognizing self-worth requires replacing self-criticism with self-compassion. Instead of berating ourselves for mistakes or shortcomings, we learn to treat ourselves with kindness and understanding. We recognize that we are human, and like everyone else, we are imperfect. Self-compassion allows us to accept our flaws without judgment and to forgive ourselves when we fall short. It encourages us to view our mistakes as opportunities for growth, rather than as reflections of our inadequacy. One of the most challenging aspects of recognizing self-worth is overcoming the fear of rejection or judgment from others. We live in a society that places a great deal of emphasis on external validation, on how we look, what we achieve, and how others perceive us. This pressure can make it difficult to fully embrace our own value, especially when we fear that others may not approve of us or may criticize us for our differences. However, true self-worth requires us to release the need for external approval. We must recognize that we are not defined by the opinions of others. Our worth is not determined by how others see us, but by how we see ourselves. When we stop seeking validation from others, we free ourselves to be authentic, to live according to our own values, and to pursue our goals with confidence. Recognizing self-worth also involves practicing gratitude for who we are. Too often we focus on what we lack or what we wish we could change about ourselves. We may compare ourselves to others and feel that we fall short. But when we practice gratitude for our unique qualities, strengths, and achievements, we begin to see our worth more clearly. Gratitude shifts our perspective from what is lacking to what is abundant. It helps us appreciate the person we are and the experiences that have shaped us. By acknowledging our strengths and celebrating our achievements, no matter how small, we cultivate a deeper sense of self-worth. An important part of recognizing self-worth is accepting that we are deserving of happiness, success, and love. Many people struggle with feelings of unworthiness when it comes to pursuing their dreams or seeking love and connection. They may feel that they don't deserve to be successful, to be loved, or to be happy because of past mistakes or failures. However, true self-worth is not based on perfection. It is about embracing ourselves as we are, flaws and all, and acknowledging that we are worthy of all the good things life has to offer. We are deserving of happiness, love, and success simply because we are human beings with inherent value. But the recognition of self-worth is not a one-time achievement, but an ongoing process. It requires continuous practice and reflection. We may encounter setbacks, periods of self-doubt, or challenges that cause us to question our worth. During these times, it is important to return to the foundational understanding that our value is not dependent on external factors or the opinions of others. We must remind ourselves that we are enough, just as we are. But over time, as we nurture our self-worth and practice self-compassion, we become more resilient, more confident, and more at peace with ourselves. Recognizing self-worth is an essential practice for living a fulfilling and empowered life. It requires self-awareness, setting healthy boundaries, practicing self-compassion, and letting go of the need for external validation. By embracing our inherent value and treating ourselves with kindness and respect, we open the door to greater happiness, success, and fulfillment. Recognizing our worth allows us to live authentically, pursue our goals with confidence, and build meaningful relationships based on mutual respect and love. When we truly recognize our self-worth, we empower ourselves to create the life we deserve. The impact of ignoring someone can be far-reaching, affecting both the individual who is being ignored and the overall dynamics of a relationship or situation. Ignoring, whether intentional or not, can be a subtle yet powerful form of communication. Often it is not about what is said, but about what is left unsaid and how silence or neglect can erode trust, respect, and emotional well-being. The emotional consequences of being ignored can be profound, leaving deep scars that shape our sense of self-worth and how we interact with others moving forward. Being ignored can feel like an emotional rejection. Human beings are social creatures, wired for connection and interaction. When we reach out to others, whether through conversation, gestures, or actions, we do so with the hope of being seen, heard, and understood. When we are met with silence or indifference, It undermines our need for recognition and validation. The impact of being ignored can be even more hurtful than outright criticism or rejection, because it often signals a lack of interest, care, or investment in the relationship. It is an indirect form of communication that communicates that we are not important enough to engage with, leaving us to wonder why we are being disregarded. The emotional toll of being ignored can vary depending on the context of the situation. In personal relationships, such as friendships or romantic partnerships, being ignored can feel like a betrayal. We invest time, energy, and emotions into these relationships, and when the people we care about turn a blind eye to us, it can make us question our value. We may begin to wonder if we are unworthy of attention or affection, or if the bond we thought we shared was one-sided. This sense of abandonment can lead to feelings of loneliness, isolation, and even depression. We may start to internalize the neglect, believing that it reflects something negative about ourselves, when in reality, the issue lies with the other person's inability to engage. In professional environments, being ignored can also have a damaging impact, though it may be expressed in more subtle ways. Ignoring a colleague's ideas, contributions, or efforts can diminish their sense of self-worth and undermine their confidence. It can create an environment where individuals feel unseen or undervalued, which can ultimately affect their motivation and job satisfaction. In workplaces where open communication and collaboration are key to success, being ignored can lead to disengagement and a lack of trust among team members. The effects of being ignored in a professional setting often extend beyond the individual, as the ripple effect of disengagement can disrupt the entire team's dynamic and productivity. One of the most destructive consequences of being ignored is how it impacts our self-esteem. Our sense of self-worth is largely shaped by how others treat us, especially in close relationships. When we are ignored, we may begin to feel invisible or insignificant, which can lead to self-doubt and insecurity. We might start questioning our value and wonder why others don't seem to care about us. Over time, repeated instances of being ignored can erode our confidence and self-esteem, making us more vulnerable to accepting unhealthy or unfulfilling relationships in the future. This cycle can perpetuate itself, as we may begin to believe that we don't deserve better treatment, leading us to tolerate further neglect or mistreatment. The impact of being ignored is not limited to emotional pain. It can also affect our mental and physical health. Chronic feelings of being ignored can trigger anxiety, stress, and depression. The uncertainty that comes with being ignored, wondering why it's happening, or if it's a reflection of something wrong with us, can cause a great deal of mental anguish. When we are ignored by those we care about or look up to, it can create a sense of powerlessness, as if we have no control over our own worth or the way we are treated. This sense of helplessness can increase feelings of anxiety and frustration, leading to a constant state of emotional turmoil. Over time, this emotional strain can manifest in physical symptoms such as headaches, fatigue, sleep disturbances, or even chronic pain. Another often overlooked impact of being ignored is the damage it does to communication. Communication is the foundation of any relationship, whether personal or professional. When we are ignored, it disrupts the flow of communication and creates a barrier between us and the other person. Ignoring someone sends a message that the other person is not worth engaging with, and over time, this can create distance and mistrust. When communication breaks down, misunderstandings become more frequent, and conflict is harder to resolve. This lack of dialogue can make it difficult to address issues, leading to unresolved tensions and a growing sense of disconnection. In relationships where ignoring becomes a pattern, it may eventually lead to complete emotional withdrawal, where one person simply stops trying to engage or communicate altogether. Moreover, the impact of ignoring someone can spread beyond just the immediate individuals involved. In family dynamics, for instance, when one member is consistently ignored, it can create rifts that affect the entire family unit. Children who experience being ignored or neglected may struggle with their own emotional development and may have difficulty forming healthy relationships later in life. They may learn to internalize the neglect, believing that their needs and feelings are unimportant. In social circles, when one person is consistently ignored, it can create tension and division, leading to a sense of exclusion. The ripple effect of being ignored can, therefore, extend beyond the immediate relationship, impacting entire networks of people. While being ignored is painful, it also offers an opportunity for reflection. It forces us to confront our own needs and boundaries. In some cases, being ignored is a signal that we may need to reevaluate the relationship or situation. It can be a wake-up call that tells us that we deserve more attention, more respect, more care. By acknowledging the impact of being ignored, we are empowered to make decisions that prioritize our emotional health. Whether that means addressing the issue directly with the person involved, setting boundaries, or even walking away from a toxic relationship, recognizing the effect of being ignored allows us to take control of our own well-being. The impact of being ignored is far-reaching, affecting our emotional, mental, and physical health. It can lead to feelings of rejection, isolation, and diminished self-worth. Over time, it can erode our confidence, disrupt communication, and damage relationships. While being ignored is hurtful, it is also an opportunity for growth and self-awareness. By recognizing the emotional toll it takes on us, we can make informed decisions about how to protect our well-being and prioritize our worth. No one deserves to be ignored, and understanding its impact is the first step toward healing and reclaiming our sense of self. Setting boundaries is a vital practice that helps us maintain our emotional, mental, and physical well-being. It is a way of defining what we are comfortable with and what we are not, establishing limits that protect our energy, time, and sense of self. Boundaries are not meant to push others away or create barriers. Instead, they help us create healthier relationships with ourselves and others. When we set boundaries, we make it clear to ourselves and others what we are willing to tolerate and what we are not. This act of self-respect and self-care is crucial for maintaining a balanced, fulfilling life. Setting boundaries is about understanding and respecting our own needs, desires, and limits. It requires self-awareness and the ability to recognize when something is not serving us well or when we are being taken advantage of. Without boundaries, we may find ourselves overwhelmed, drained, or even resentful in relationships, whether personal, professional, or social. When we fail to set boundaries, we can lose touch with ourselves, compromising our values, our peace of mind, and our happiness. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect. It is a statement that we are worthy of our own time, energy, and care. There are several reasons why setting boundaries is important. First, boundaries protect our mental health. In any relationship or situation, it is essential to recognize when something is no longer healthy or sustainable. Without boundaries, we may find ourselves constantly overextending ourselves, giving more than we have, or sacrificing our own needs for the sake of others. Over time, this can lead to burnout, stress, and anxiety. Setting boundaries allows us to say no when we need to, giving ourselves permission to prioritize our own well-being. By protecting our mental health, we ensure that we are better equipped to handle the challenges life presents. In relationships, boundaries are essential for maintaining mutual respect and understanding. Whether in friendships, family dynamics, or romantic partnerships, healthy boundaries help ensure that both parties feel valued and respected. Without boundaries, relationships can become unbalanced, with one person dominating or taking advantage of the other. This imbalance can lead to feelings of resentment, frustration, and even emotional exhaustion. For example, in a friendship, setting a boundary might mean telling a friend that you are unable to always be available for their emotional needs. This doesn't mean you don't care about them, rather, it acknowledges that you need to protect your own energy and time. Boundaries help us communicate our limits and express what we need in relationships without feeling guilty or selfish. Professionally, boundaries are just as important. Work environments can sometimes demand more of our time and energy than we are willing to give, leading to stress and burnout. Without boundaries at work, it's easy to fall into the trap of overcommitting or constantly putting others' needs ahead of our own. For example, you may feel pressured to work late hours or take on additional tasks because you don't want to disappoint your boss or colleagues. However, this kind of behavior can lead to resentment, frustration, and even physical or emotional exhaustion. Setting clear boundaries in the workplace helps ensure that you maintain a work-life balance, allowing you to meet your professional obligations while still taking care of your personal needs. It might mean setting limits on how late you work or communicating when you are unable to take on additional tasks. It's not about being uncooperative, it's about protecting your energy so that you can perform at your best without sacrificing your health. Boundaries also help protect our sense of self. They allow us to maintain our individuality and avoid losing ourselves in relationships, obligations, or expectations. When we don't set boundaries, we can become enmeshed with others, losing sight of our own values, desires, and goals. This can happen in personal relationships where one person's needs take precedence over the others, or in situations where we are constantly accommodating others at the expense of our own sense of self. Setting boundaries helps us preserve our own identity and ensures that we do not become overwhelmed by the needs or demands of others. It's a way of saying that while we value others, we also value ourselves. One of the most important aspects of setting boundaries is learning how to communicate them effectively. Boundaries are only effective when we can express them clearly and assertively. This requires a level of self-confidence and self-respect. It's easy to feel guilty about setting boundaries, especially if we worry about disappointing others or appearing selfish. However, it is important to remember that setting boundaries is not an act of selfishness, rather. It is an act of self-care. When we communicate our boundaries respectfully and clearly, we are advocating for our own needs without disrespecting the needs of others. It's about finding a balance between honoring our own needs and respecting the needs of those around us. There are different types of boundaries we might set, including physical, emotional, and mental boundaries. Physical boundaries might involve setting limits on how much physical contact we are comfortable with or how much personal space we need. Emotional boundaries are about protecting our emotional well-being, such as knowing when to distance ourselves from emotionally draining or toxic situations. Mental boundaries involve knowing when to set limits on how much mental energy we are willing to invest in a conversation or situation. For example, you might set a mental boundary by limiting the amount of time you spend thinking about a stressful situation or a conversation that is causing you anxiety. Each type of boundary plays a role in preserving our overall well-being and ensuring that we do not give more than we can handle. Despite the importance of setting boundaries, it can be challenging, especially for those who are not accustomed to asserting their needs. Many people struggle with the fear of rejection or the desire to please others, which can make it difficult to set boundaries. We may worry that we will disappoint others, or that we will be seen as difficult or uncooperative. However, it's important to recognize that setting boundaries is not about rejecting others, it's about taking care of ourselves. It is a way of honoring our own needs, desires, and limits. It's also essential to remember that setting boundaries is an ongoing process. Our boundaries may change over time, depending on our circumstances, relationships, and personal growth. Setting boundaries is a crucial practice for maintaining our emotional, mental, and physical health. It allows us to protect our time, energy, and well-being while fostering healthier, more balanced relationships. Boundaries help us define what we are comfortable with and what we are not, giving us the tools to navigate our personal and professional lives with greater confidence and clarity. By setting and communicating boundaries, we ensure that we honor our own needs while maintaining respect for others. It's a practice that requires self-awareness, self-respect, and assertiveness, but the benefits it brings to our overall well-being are immeasurable. Choosing peace is an essential practice in a world often filled with noise, conflict, and chaos. It is not just about the absence of conflict, but about consciously deciding to prioritize inner tranquility and harmony over external turmoil. In a society that glorifies productivity, competition, and constant action, the pursuit of peace can sometimes be viewed as passive or even indulgent. However, true peace requires strength, intention, and a deep commitment to one's own well-being. Choosing peace is a proactive decision that impacts our mental, emotional, and physical health, and it serves as a powerful tool for personal growth and fulfillment. The first step in choosing peace is understanding that it begins within. External circumstances, whether it's a stressful job, family conflicts, or societal pressures, are often beyond our control. While we cannot always change the situations around us, we have the power to control how we respond to them. Peace is not about avoiding challenges or conflict, but about maintaining a calm and centered mindset despite external pressures. By choosing peace, we acknowledge that our reactions to the world around us are within our control. It is in our response to situations that we find our power to create a peaceful life, regardless of what is happening externally. One of the key aspects of choosing peace is cultivating mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present in the moment, without judgment or distraction. It helps us quiet the constant chatter of the mind and create space for stillness and clarity. In a world filled with distractions, social media, endless tasks, and the constant pressure to perform, mindfulness allows us to step back and reconnect with our inner selves. Through practices such as meditation, deep breathing, or simply being present in the moment, we can create a sense of peace that radiates outward. Mindfulness helps us tune into our emotions, thoughts, and physical sensations, allowing us to recognize when we are being pulled away from a peaceful state. When we are mindful, we can make conscious choices to bring ourselves back to peace instead of reacting impulsively to stress or frustration. Choosing peace also involves setting boundaries that protect our emotional and mental well-being. Many of us are conditioned to prioritize the needs of others, often at the expense of our own peace. We may feel guilty about saying no, setting limits, or distancing ourselves from toxic situations or individuals. However, in order to maintain peace, it is crucial to establish boundaries that safeguard our energy. This might mean limiting our exposure to negative people, saying no to commitments that drain us, or taking time for self-care when we feel overwhelmed. By setting boundaries, we create space for peace to flourish. It is a way of protecting ourselves from the chaos and noise that can invade our lives and prevent us from experiencing true tranquility. Another important element of choosing peace is the practice of forgiveness. Holding on to grudges, resentment, or anger can be incredibly damaging to our emotional and mental health. These negative emotions create inner turmoil, preventing us from experiencing peace. Choosing peace means letting go of past hurts and choosing forgiveness, whether it is forgiving others or forgiving ourselves. Forgiveness does not mean condoning harmful behavior or forgetting the pain caused. Rather, it is about releasing the hold that resentment has over us. It is about freeing ourselves from the burden of anger and finding peace in the present moment. Forgiveness is an act of self-liberation, allowing us to move forward without the weight of past grudges holding us back. Choosing peace also involves accepting the things we cannot change. Life is unpredictable, and not every situation is within our control. We may face challenges, loss, or setbacks that are beyond our ability to alter. In these moments, choosing peace means embracing acceptance. Acceptance does not mean resigning ourselves to passivity or defeat, but it is about acknowledging reality without resistance. When we resist what is happening, we create unnecessary suffering. By accepting things as they are, we free ourselves from the grip of frustration, disappointment, and stress. Acceptance allows us to focus on what we can control: our thoughts, actions, and attitudes, while releasing the need to control everything around us. In our relationships, choosing peace is also about practicing compassion and understanding. Conflict is a natural part of human interaction, but how we respond to conflict determines whether we can maintain peace. Choosing peace means approaching disagreements with an open heart, listening with empathy, and seeking to understand others' perspectives. It involves letting go of the need to be right and embracing the idea that peace is more important than being validated. By choosing to respond with kindness, patience, and understanding, we create an environment where conflict can be resolved peacefully. Instead of fueling tension, we diffuse it with a calm and compassionate approach. One of the most challenging aspects of choosing peace is overcoming the tendency to react emotionally to situations. It is easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment, to lash out in anger or frustration when things don't go our way. However, choosing peace requires emotional regulation and the ability to pause before reacting. It means taking a step back, breathing deeply, and considering how we want to respond. Reacting impulsively can often lead to regret, hurt feelings, or further conflict. In contrast, responding from a place of peace allows us to handle difficult situations with grace and clarity. Emotional regulation is a skill that can be developed through mindfulness, self-awareness, and practice. Choosing peace also involves letting go of unrealistic expectations. Often we set ourselves up for stress and disappointment by expecting perfection, whether from ourselves, others, or life in general. These unrealistic expectations create frustration and undermine our peace. Choosing peace means embracing imperfection and understanding that life will not always unfold the way we want it to. It is about finding contentment in the present moment, even when things aren't perfect. By letting go of perfectionism and accepting life as it is, we create space for peace to thrive.